Hello and welcome to Faith on Film, a program designed to keep you aware and informed on everything that's happening in the world of faith and family entertainment. We have a special, I guess I'm going to call it an Easter special today, and joining me for that will be Holly McClure. Holly, how are you today?
Isaac, I'm doing great. Thank you. As always, it's good to be with you. And I'm excited about today's show because I can actually talk my personal experiences.
Why is this an Easter special?
This is an Easter special because we're talking about the Passion of the Christ. And we're talking about, in fact, it'll be, well, in 2 years, it'll be 20 years. So it's been a while.
Wow.
But I was invited to be on the set to film the behind the scenes interviews. I went to Italy for 2 months. So firsthand, I saw what went on at the very beginning and at the very end, you know, what was going on as far as marketing and promotion and getting it out there. And had a great experience that changed my life forever. So it's a great time to talk about it. And it's a worthwhile movie to see if you haven't seen it, which I'm still surprised that there's people that haven't, but it's there.
Yeah, me too. Now, I got to admit, it did raise a bit of a controversy at first because it was actually a very violent film. I mean, this is the first time when the crucifixion scene was, I'm going to say, very, very gory, very
graphic. Yeah,
very graphic. But let's start at the beginning. How in the world did you get involved in this?
I got a phone call in August of 2002, and the voice said, Mel Gibson would like to see you in his office, and could you come up and meet with him tomorrow? And I thought it was a joke. I said, well, sure I can. I thought it was a girlfriend playing a joke on me. And then she said, okay. And then I realized it wasn't a joke. And I said, sure, I would be more than happy to. He wants to discuss a project. I went up to Icon Studios in Santa Monica, California. Went in, there's Mel Gibson with his dungarees and plaid shirt and work boots, and Steve McAvity sitting at the table. And we're at Icon, and there's this big, long conference table. And I can see photos laid out like a storyboard on the table. And he said, Holly, you know, good to see you. And we had the chit chat. Basically, he called me up there to literally he said, okay, it starts with the moon's coming up. And he played out the whole movie in front of me. And I'm still pinching myself saying Mel Gibson is doing his movie in front of me. He said, this is a little project the Lord told me to do. He said, I really feel like God asked me to make it. I don't think anyone's going to come see it, but I'd like your opinion on it and see what you think about it. He said, I've got it set up right now. We're filming in Italy and at Cinecittà Studios. He said, Jim Caviezel is going to play Jesus. And he told me a few other things about it. And I said, this is going to be amazing. So again, he laid out the storyboards. I saw the actresses. As we finished talking, probably an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, he said, okay, well, I'm going to give you the script. And when I get in Italy, I'll call you. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, I want to see what you think about it. I'm like, okay. I mean, you're Mel Gibson, you've written scripts, you've directed.
Wait a minute. Let me back up a little bit because you said something that just struck me here. You said that he thought nobody was going to watch this film.
He said, no one's going to come see this film. I'm personally financing it because I'm going to put my $15 million into it because I couldn't get studios to back it. He goes, no one's probably going to want to see this film, but I'm going to do it to be obedient to what he promised God. He said he was told. When we were soldiers, he said, when we were soldiers, God told me then to put on my heart to make this. He goes, so the script has been in process for several years. I've had, Father Fitzgerald and others look at it and analyze it. And he said, just the last 12 hours of Christ's life, it's going to be in Aramaic. And I said, okay, great. Are you going to have subtitles? He goes, no, I don't need subtitles. And I said, well, you're going to have to put subtitles. And so that was kind of hilarious because we went back and forth on that.
Okay. But by the way, this is a full show today. It's not a little segment. So I feel like I have time to catch up on stuff that you say. And I'm like, wait, I want to talk about that a little bit more. I think this is a great lesson for filmmakers here. You said that God told him, that he told you that God told him to do this movie. And even though he didn't think anybody would see it, but he was obedient.
Excuse me.
He was obedient. So there's a lesson right there. It's really what makes success, I think, would be that we're obedient to whatever God tells us, right?
Right.
And you would think, I mean, he's not exactly the model Christian as we would look at model Christians. Wonder why God picked him.
I feel that, and I told this to Mel Gibson later on when we were shooting, I said, I really feel like how God chose David to be king, and he took him from being a shepherd to shepherding the flock and being a king. God took you as a king so that you could shepherd the flock. You have the money, the position, the name, the title. And he used someone of influence because he knows that with Christian films, we would never have this made like you've done it. We would never have this film. But at that time, you know, you didn't see any big, huge million dollar productions of Christian films. And I said, there's no way. So God used you as a king with the relevance that you have to shepherd in the flock and to bring people in to see something that they never would normally go see. And it was very profound. And he gave me the script. It was kind of fun too, because when I was in his office, I saw the Braveheart sword and all his movie memorabilia. I was like, I got to see the Braveheart sword. I was so excited to see that. It was really fun. It was fun to kind of be there and pinching myself. And so anyway, I said, well, what about a neat PK? Have you thought about doing that? He goes, Holly, no one's going to come see this. I don't need to do that. I go, oh, you have no idea who's going to come see it. I said, for instance, like James Dobson with Focus on the Family. He goes, great. Okay, great. Who's that? I said, well, and Greg Laurie with Harvest Crusade. Great. Okay, who's that? I named like the who's who 20 years ago, you know, who the ones in ministry. He didn't know anybody. And I finally stopped and I go, okay, you have no idea who I'm talking about, do you? I was kind of laughing. He goes, well, Holly, I've been in Hollywood for 20 years. He goes, this is where I've been. This is my world. He said, that's why I called you in to find out what that world is. And he says, I'm Catholic, so I'm only familiar really with the Catholic side of things. I said, there is a whole world of Christians out there and Christian media who are going to want to see this. You have no idea how big this film is going to be, and you have no idea how it's going to be taken and carried. He goes, really? And I'm like, I'm telling you, this is going to be huge. Yep. You know, it's going to be. So he went, a couple of weeks went by. I thought I'll never hear from him again, but I had the script, which was really cool. He called me. 2 weeks later, I got a phone call. Hi, Mel Gibson's on the line. He'd like to talk to you. I'm like, okay, sure. And he said, hey, Holly, I'm in Italy. How are you? And I said, how are you doing? He goes, well, I started to drive at first, but it got so crazy on the streets that he goes, I've got a driver now. And he goes, what'd you think of the script? And I go, it was phenomenal. He goes, last 12 hours, it's impactful. Wow. When we see him being flogged and the things that he's going through, I said, there's a few things, but I mean, overall, it's amazing. If you do it just like this, but put subtitles in, and he laughed. I said, it's going to be great. And he goes, well, what are your thoughts? Like, what does it need? I go, well, in the very beginning, you have this woman waking up with Mother Mary. And I know that's Mary, his mother, but who is this woman? Is it his sister? Is it his girlfriend? Is it his wife? There's no explanation of Mary Magdalene and who she is. And quite frankly, you've said there's not going to be any subtitles, which there has to be, Mel, because if it's Aramaic, no one's going to know who that is. Right. He goes, well, Holly, everyone knows that story. And I go, no, everyone doesn't know the story. And they won't know who that is. And there's been a lot of misinformation about Jesus being married and Mary Magdalene being his wife. You can't do it. You have to clarify. I said, if you could just do a flashback scene, and I said, it's not really the Mary Magdalene, but a lot of people thought it was. If you could do the woman that was going to be stoned and he stopped her from being stoned, he goes, I know. I'll draw a line in the sand. And I goes, I'll draw it with my finger in the sand. And he goes, and then I'll have her reach out and touch my sandal. I go, yes, if you did that, that's all you have to do. And I said, you know, she can be all frazzled looking. He goes, Monica Bellucci is here. Jim's not here yet. He goes, it'll be my foot. I'll go ahead and film it. And he goes, I can do the stand in, and then we'll do a close-up shot of Jim later. I said, perfect. And he said, because I can do that. And he goes, and then I'll just do my finger to draw a line in the sand. So when you see that, that's Mel Gibson's finger. To draw, and it's his foot, because she reaches out and touches his foot. And he goes, okay, what else? I said, well, the only other thing is, you're not going to take this beyond the tomb. You've told me now you're not going to take it beyond the tomb, because that's right. I said, well, in the Bible, we all know that when Jesus is resurrected, he meets Peter on the beach and he says, do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? 3 times. And he gives Peter the chance to say, Lord, you know I do. And the 3 times that he denied Christ, he gets the 3 times to say how much he loves Christ and redeems that. And he recognizes that Jesus gave him that. I said, you're taking it just up to the tomb. So in my mind, if I see Peter, and I'm thinking he betrayed Jesus because he denied him to the people outside the temple. So he's denied Christ. So I'm thinking Judas and Peter betrayed him. He goes, oh, you're right. Okay. He goes, I'll do it with a look. I'll have him look across the temple as they're dragging him out, and people will know with that look that Jesus forgave him. I'm like, okay. So there was those little changes, and they got into the movie. They were actually part of the script, and they were added. So I was very proud that those things got in there, because it made a difference. I said, you need more flashback scenes. You need, having the Last Supper. You need things to flashback to bring people into it. So again, he did more flashback scenes as well. So it was really fun doing that. And then he said, sure. And if you want to come over, he goes, come over. And we made the date to come over. And I went over for 2 months and had an amazing time.
Wow. Wow. Now there's something that was very interesting about the movie, and that is that he made Satan a woman in that scene at the Garden of Gethsemane. That by the way, was that your idea?
Not at all.
Okay.
That was Mel's idea. He said, I just thought it'd be neat to have this creepy baby and have this, creepy baby going through, and then this, the Satan. And you kind of think it's a man, but it kind of looks like a woman. You don't know what he is. He's just doing a head trip. So that was just Mel's idea of
Okay.
evil
Well,
in the world and how he would do it.
Well, here's why I liked it, and it's not that I think women are evil. So if you're going to portray evil, make it look like a woman. That's not it. But I just think it was, we always have a thought in our heads that the devil is just this ugly, sometimes red with horns, or is this ugly
Right.
creature, and to make him look attractive, I think really sends an interesting message that you got to really be careful. Just because things look beautiful and attractive does not mean they're not evil. That's what I got out
Right.
of it.
Right. Right. And it wasn't necessarily male or female.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was that,
Well,
it was that.
it looked female to me because I don't. If a male looks that
Yeah.
beautiful,
Well, he
although
actually did.
today, I don't know.
He actually said what he was doing was imitating Mother and Jesus, Mother of Christ and Jesus.
Interesting.
And he was imitating Satan doing the same thing with the baby
Interesting.
and imitating that same, so that he was making fun of that and mocking that. And when we were in Italy, I was there for 2 months. I had a guy that's filming with me. I filmed all the behind the scenes interviews with Mel, interviews of Jerusalem, Monica Bellucci, Maya Morgenstern, Jim Caviezel had it set up in different settings to film them. In fact, if you want to go on YouTube, you can type in Making of the Passion and you'll see my interviews on YouTube that they were posted. Actually, I didn't do it because they said we couldn't do anything with Icon, but Icon did it. And it's on the Making of the Passion. All my interviews and things are on there. So you can go see makeup, wardrobe. I literally covered everything. Mel had the best of the best hairstylist, the best makeup, the best wardrobe, the best special effects. The crew, the disciples were from everywhere. There was people from Poland, Spain, France. So not everyone spoke English. Not everyone spoke the same language. Of course, the film language was Aramaic. So they had to all learn the Aramaic to speak that, which was even hard for some of them to do that. The Jim Caviezel was, he would have that crown of thorns on his head and be sitting down in between takes like the temple. And so, I would go over by him, but he stayed in character. I mean, when I say that, meditating on the Lord, meditating on scripture, he wouldn't just go out and, have a cup of coffee and talk to people. He stayed very focused and in character in Christ. It was funny because when we would walk from the dressing room and he'd walk across the set to go to where they're shooting on the set, people, like the extras, were all Italians. There are all these Italian women. Because, of course, they would go up, oh, Cristo, Cristo. And they would tug at him. And he goes, no, I'm not Jesus. And they would talk to him as if he was Jesus. You couldn't even convince him that he wasn't. It was kind of funny because he had little fans, groupies following Jesus around.
Right.
And it was really fun. The whipping scene, he was getting flogged. And, Mel, we were all watching the take, and they had the cat of nine tails, and the different instruments. And of course, he had a fake skin. They covered him with a skin every day. It took 3 hours to put his makeup. So they covered him with his fake skin, and on his back. Well, the whip, the thing that they did, of course, they put special sound effects, hit his back, but it wasn't hurting him because, like I said, he had that protection. Mm-hmm. Well, in the scene where he's chained up in front of him, his hands are chained, and he's going like this. The guy whipped him, and he went, ah, and he cried out. And Mel goes, that's great. Yeah, that's good. And it's like, he's crying. And Mel said, wait. And someone said, stop, cut. And they went over and, of course, undid his hands. And it had broken through the skin, the fake skin, the latex covering that he had, and really did hit his back. And so they're all looking around, and they're calling the medics over and the paramedics, and Jim's laying there, and they're kind of, getting the blood off, and they have to, of course, repair the thing on his back. So it's going to take a minute to do that. Mm-hmm. And Mel calls the special effects guy, Scott, come here. And he goes, look at this. He goes, see how the scar looks after he's really been hit? Yours doesn't look like that. He goes, so go back and remake all the scars to look like that, because that's how it's supposed to look, a real whipping. So the guys had to go in and kind of redo the scars and redo how it was looking on his back, according to how he really was struck. Poor Jimmy had pneumonia. He got whipped for real. He got hit by lightning twice, but, lightning.
I thought lightning never strikes twice.
Who knew? And they had an umbrella. They were helping him. It was raining, and they were getting him off the cross, and they were walking down the hill, in Matera, Italy, actually, where they filmed that. And they had the umbrella up, and the assistant director was over him, and it hit both of them and knocked both of them. Of course, they lived, but it knocked both of them, and the hair was kind of frizzled, and they were, in shock. And then he went back to reshoot a year later to reshoot Sermon on the Mount. And again, he got hit. It hadn't rained there for months and months and months. And the one day they were doing Sermon on the Mount, it did. So it's kind of funny. He got hit by twice. There was miracles on set. There was someone whose ear was deaf ear, and it was opened up and they could hear. There was illnesses that were healed. Someone's daughter had a disease, and she was healed like instantly. They prayed over. People were having these miracles as they were praying and coming on set and talking about it. Funny, because every day Mel did communion, and I got to go in there and watch him do communion. And he could not find, because he loves the Orthodox Latin Mass, right, and he couldn't find someone at that time in Rome that did a Latin Mass. So he flew in his own father from Canada who would do a Latin Mass. So every day we go in there, and he had his dungarees and his plaid shirt, and he's kneeling down, and he rings the bell. The priest is there. It's a small little room, and he's doing the Mass and the whole thing. And he takes the Eucharist, and he goes, "Okay, Holly, before we go in, I'll just tell you, you can come whenever you want, but you can't take the communion." I'm like, "Well, Mel, I'm a Christian. I can take communion." He goes, no, this isn't the same thing that you take. Wow. This is so you can't do it. He goes, "But you can watch, but you can sing." I'm like, "Sing?" And he goes, "Yeah." I'm thinking, okay, there'll be some people in there. There's music. Oh no. He hands me a hymn book, and it's just me. I'm like, well, okay. And I was trying to sing. I thought he was playing a joke at first. It was really funny. But eventually word got out that he was doing every day, doing communion. He did not do a shoot day until he did that. And at night shoots, he would do it at night. In the morning, he would do it early in the morning. And I was there for a lot of it, as long as I was there. And eventually the word got out, and little by little, Jesus came in, Judas came in, Peter came in, all the people in their makeup and their characters. And you can see Roman guards with Jim and his, crown of thorns, and they all did communion in makeup and in character. It was kind of funny. It really was. The one day I was in the temple when they were shooting, and Peter was standing over by a pillar, and I went over to do an interview, and I said, and he's Italian. That actor who played Peter was Italian. I said, "So how was your experience on set?" And he's smoking a cigarette. He goes, "Well, John and Judas and I, we get together. And we we have dinner, we talk. It was hilarious. I was trying not to laugh. He goes, we talk, we have these conversations, with John, Judas and I." And as if he calls them by the disciples' names, So it was really fun. It was fun being there. It was a lot of culture, a lot of amazing things that happened. And all the time Mel's going, "No one's going to want to see this. No one's going to want to see this. This is horrible." All the time. He did not believe it, literally, until a year later when we went back in post and we're looking at things, and he realized, oh my gosh. And I said, "Mel, this is going to be the biggest Christian film ever." He goes, "Oh, everyone, Holly thinks this is going to be the biggest Christian film." I go, "You watch, you make fun of me. You're going to make a huge opening weekend," which I think it did 84 million the opening weekend, and it did 612 million by the time it was done. It's the highest R-rated Christian film and the highest grossing Christian film ever, the highest R-rated Christian film. And because we were concerned about audiences seeing it, I did a half-hour making of The Passion of the Christ, and we put that on TBN and on PAX because we wanted to assure people, you can go see this. Yes, you've heard it's violent, but you can see it and you want to see it. And truthfully, we had people reporting back and saying, after I saw this special, I agreed to go to the movie because I realized what it was about and it wasn't going to be too horrendous. So I had the pleasure of even doing that, the year after and promoting that and getting that made.
Well, I heard that he did something very smart. After he realized, wow, I may have something here, and he was getting ready to release the movie. For a year before, this is what I've heard, for a year before the release, he actually went and visited some of the largest churches in the country to promote the movie. Did I hear it correctly?
You heard it correctly. It was the beginning of a lot of people's career in the Christian faith and film industry, because people who had never had PR or marketing and never had done things, all of a sudden, you'll hear people go, "I worked on The Passion of the Christ." Well, about 300 people worked on The Passion of the Christ, because what they did was a campaign where they got a lot of people, churches, promotions, people involved, anyone who wanted to promote it on the internet or whatever. If you wanted to, go ahead. They didn't pay you. but they wanted the promotion, and everyone wanted to be a
Yeah.
part of it. I mean, every famous leader came, the Rick Warrens, the Franklin Graham, all the big wigs came, and actors and actresses came to see this in his screening room. So yeah, he
Yeah.
got input from a lot of people.
I worked on the Passion of the Christ. I did a little commercial for our church and sold tickets at our church. So I worked on the Passion of the Christ.
You worked on the Passion of the Christ. I laugh when I hear people say that. I'm like, sure you did. A lot of people did.
Yeah.
But I was there when there was nobody else working on it.
Yep. I didn't get to go to Italy. I didn't get on phone calls with him, and I didn't tell him where his script was a little off.
Well, I even got to do the first article that was written for the New York Daily News, and the guy said, you get a paragraph, that's what you get, because he was so against Mel Gibson and so against anything religious.
Wow.
I'm like, well, okay. I got a call later. Well, now you get a half paragraph. Actually, you get a half page. I got a call about 3 or 4 hours later, because I would call Mel's publicist and tell him every time, what they told me. And I got a call about 3 hours later. It was really funny. And he goes, okay, you're going to get a whole page. It ended up being a 6-page front cover Passion of the Christ, the first article out about it. And again, God bless me doing it, and God bless Mel, because he made sure that movie and that promotion got out, and it was done the right way. So I love the fact of how he worked against the liberal left media who didn't want to get it out, and how God got his way. And bless Mel.
And I think he has, right? Because he's continued to make very successful movies.
Absolutely. He had some rough patches, and I think that there was reason why there was, and I could explain those things. But all that to say, who of us is perfect? He's a human being, and I feel bad that bad press that's happened to him. But he's coming back in, and he's working his way back into Hollywood and working his way. Have people heard he's making a Passion 2? Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard some reports that he is, and he's working on it. But what I would tell Mel, if anyone would tell him and should tell him and listen, it's never going to be the same as the first. You're not going to have the same response. You're not going to have the turnout. You're not going to have the people promoting it that you did. It's that one of a kind, once in a million thing that comes along that God does, that it's solely God, that literally from the beginning to the end, God had his hand on it. God wanted it out. There was Muslims that came to see the movie because they heard Jews were going to be persecuted. So they came to see Jews get persecuted, and they walked out going, who is this Jesus? Who is this Jesus? We want the Bible. They were sending Bibles over to Afghanistan, the Middle East, all over, in Europe, because people wanted to know who Jesus was after seeing this movie. They had no idea. They'd never read that scripture or seen that. So it definitely touched internationally people, which God knew it would. We had one woman say, this man appeared to me in my village, and he appeared to me and said to go see this movie. So she traveled like an hour and a half walking to travel to the city to go see it. And they said, how did he look? And she said, oh, he had long hair, he had a beard, and so she saw Jesus. Jesus appeared to her and told her to go see the movie. And she didn't even know who he was. But when she saw the movie, she said, that's the man that came to me. That's the man that talked to me, that told me to come. It was stories like that, multiple stories like that.
Oh, wow. A pastor, a friend of mine that I attended his church for a little bit, he preached this sermon and used the Passion, really used Mel as the subject of his message. And the message was, I think he called it blueprints, fingerprints, and footprints. And he talked about Mel, how, blueprints were basically his scripts of different movies that he's put together, that he's either produced, some of them maybe not, but they're still his blueprints. And then fingerprints would be pretty much all the movies that he's made, where you see obviously his fingerprints on all these movies. He said, but footprints is the Passion of the Christ. That will be for the rest of his life. That's going to be the movie that people will always associate him with, no matter what else he makes. And yes, we do know him for all these other movies and stuff, but his footprint is going to be the Passion of the Christ.
It is. And there will be people that will come to him in heaven and say, because of you, I became a Christian. Because of you, I wanted to read the Bible because of you. And he has no idea how that's going to greet him. I think he got a better idea by the time it was over, because he definitely learned who people were. And he said, I never imagined the Christian world being this big, because he had no idea. He had no one to be in touch with him about that. He'd only seen things from a Catholic perspective. So yeah, I agree with you. The footprint, Isaac, is so strong and so important. And in all of our lives, isn't it? Doesn't really matter the fame and all the other things that follow you. It's the footprint that you leave. So, and that can be the little things in life, not just the big movies.
Right. Oh yeah. No, it's whatever you do that actually makes an impact in the world.
Exactly. Exactly. So I don't know. I love that experience. It was so powerful, and producing the making of, because I had been there and filmed all those and had the interviews and saw it, and it was able to build the story of the miracles in there, as well as just the interesting characters and people. And everyone who worked on that movie from all different national, I think there was 60 something countries or over 60 nationalities working on the film, in it and working on it from the Aramaic on, which obviously Mel decided to do subtitles. But everyone said working on that film, it changed their life. And literally people that said, I was agnostic. I did not believe in God. I believed, but not really, had come to the communion and come in and were so into the story that by the end of it, they were Christians. They'd given their life to the Lord. So even on set, lives were changed.
Which, by the way, the fact that he did it in Aramaic, I think, was brilliant. Because even though I've never liked reading subtitles, it just drives me nuts, especially Spanish ones, because I'm like comparing, since I know Spanish, I'm comparing what they said to what is really written, and I find that I'm not enjoying the movie anymore. I'm sitting there comparing. In this case, that didn't happen because I don't know Aramaic. But I thought that was brilliant because it really made it sound and feel very, very realistic. I mean, Jesus wouldn't have spoken English. He spoke Aramaic,
did,
right?
because
and it just
was in our minds. Well, in my mind, that's all I know is English. So I'm thinking, well, that's how Jesus said. That's what he said. Well, when you hear it, when you hear Mary Magdalene, Yeshua, Yeshua, when you hear them say that, you're like, oh yeah. And the way he had to say things and pronounce things, it was difficult to learn, but it was incredible to hear.
Wow. So now, if people now want to watch the making of that you produce, so you say it's on YouTube, it's still available? They can.
If you Google the making of the Passion of the Christ, and go into YouTube, someone, and I'm assuming it was because when I was working on it, Bruce Davey, who is Mel's partner, he was his accountant in Australia, and he started business with him, and then he became the partner of Icon. He's not a very nice man. I will be Christian and not say bad things, but not a very nice man. And he wouldn't let anyone do anything or post anything or whatever. And again, this is before iPhones. This is before the internet's really huge. So this is before you had the social media that we have today. But he wouldn't let us post stuff. Okay. But somebody took together, and I think collectively it was obviously someone from the team, because it's in there, the makeup, the wardrobe, interviews that I did, were the actors and some people. So go in there. It's delightful. I'm glad it's there. I'm glad people can see it, because you get that behind the scenes look, and it's fun, and the whole set and everything. It's fun to see.
Well, Holly, this has been a wonderful show. Just getting to hear all these insights from one of the most iconic movies I think that has ever been produced, especially in the faith-based space. So thank you for taking the time to just let us into that world.
You're so welcome. I love sharing it, and especially since it's the reason for the season, and it is Jesus, and to remember what he did on the cross, and that it was a sacrifice, and he did go through pain and agony, but that the reward of seeing him in that tomb, with holes in his hands, but healed, and it's just that it's so rewarding to see that, and it brings even more importance to the Easter season, I think.
Fantastic. Well, folks, if you want to write Holly or myself, just write us at faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. That's faithonfilmtv@gmail.com. Folks, again, thank you so much for joining us. I really hope you enjoyed today's show. Holly,
thanks, Isaac.
You bet. Bye-bye now.